HR leaders, what's on your mind these days? Is it AI? Is it the economy? The talent market? Remote work? Retention? DEI? Pay transparency? New laws? Our 2024 Workplace Trends Report outlines how HR leaders are thinking about these challenges and what they believe will help their organizations overcome them. Want to find out what they said? Head on over to peoplemanagingpeople.com/Workplace Trends 2024 and download the report to find out.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim Reitzma, the resident host of People Managing People. Welcome to the podcast. We're people managing people, and we want to lead and manage better. We're owners, founders, entrepreneurs. We're middle managers. We're team leaders. We're managing people, and yes, we do human resources. But we're not HR, at least not in the traditional sense. We're on a mission to help people lead and manage their teams and organizations more effectively. So if you want to lead and manage better, if you want to become a better organizational leader and more effective people manager, then join us. Keep listening to the podcast to find the tips, tricks, and tools you need to recruit, retain, manage, and lead your people and organization more effectively. And while listening to the show, please subscribe and join our mailing list on peoplemanagingpeople.com to stay up to date with all that's going on. Well, welcome, Joel. I really appreciate you taking the time today to come and be on the People Managing People podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim. Excited to be on here with you.
Let's say we're going through, maybe I've got a company and I'm going through a growth stage and I need to hire, 10 more people. Do I just hire for position or company fit, as in values and culture, or a combination of both? Do I just pull the trigger on the first 10 applicants I get because I'm maybe afraid to lose them? There's a lot packed into that one question, but I think it's top of mind for people. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you want to know, where do I start? And I think, probably the biggest thing that an organization should do before they go to market with, if they're going with, one or two roles or several roles, is really understand their own values and their own culture. That's so important for people these days, to understand what it's going to be like to work in that organization. I think Eric Tremonti said it best. He said, you might have 10 organizations across this city looking to hire 10 different accountants. And all of those job descriptions could look virtually the same. The skills, the day-to-day duties, the job, but the actual experience that person will have at that desk in any one of those 10 companies could be vastly different. So that's why it's so important to get your values, your kind of what the elements of your culture are, what you stand for as an organization, and what that experience will be like for an employee joining the company. Get that established first. And that's working with your leadership team, working with your staff. Maybe it's an employee engagement survey. It could just be a simple meet and greet, a few minutes, if you have an HR team, or if you have a few leaders that can go out and kind of survey the staff to get a sense of what's it like working for our organization. What are we all standing for? What are we working for? And what's that experience? And then once you establish that, you can kind of bubble that up into a job description and get it in there with all of the other stats and requirements and educational requirements and kind of the feeds and speeds, I call it sometimes, in the job description. So it paints a picture of what's the day-to-day work going to be like, but also what will the experience be? And that's really, I think, the best starting point.
Yeah, that's, I think, what I'm hearing in the market. It's not just about, meeting those qualifications. It's definitely more than that. So I'll just flip the tables a minute. So let's say somebody who's listening to the podcast is looking for a new job, looking maybe to start their career. And so they're finding these company websites and they're saying, hey, this is what our culture is, what it's like to work for us. How do you know it's not just smoke and mirrors of what they're saying?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there is this shift that's happened where companies are getting smarter and they are marketing, a certain brand to prospective employees and to candidates. It's really up to the candidate and it's up to you as the applicant to really kind of suss out or feel out if that's accurate. And so that really just goes to the point of having conversations with people in the company. I do recommend that people reach out to someone they know in the organization or someone they could potentially connect with through a referral to find out what's it like working there. What's your experience in the organization? And I would always encourage candidates, to ask that, during their interview process. Why do you, one of my favorite questions is always, why do you like working here? What brought you to this organization? And I'll ask that of my clients as we're getting ready to hire and getting ready to interview candidates for a potential job opening they have. Just getting a sense of why they're there. What keeps them engaged at their desk every day and keeps them coming back. We know there's lots of opportunities out there. Unemployment's at a 50-year low in certain skill areas. So people have other opportunities and there's other opportunities out there that are, kind of knocking on their door. So what is it that keeps them at this organization engaged, fulfilled, and working?
That's a great question. I've asked that question in the past. I've been asked that question as I've hired a number of people throughout my career. And having a good answer for that is key. And just candidates who are paying attention even to your body language, to the words you're choosing, they'll be able to read through the lines or the BS, if you will, and see if you're just, reading a script of what's just written on the website or actually enjoying being there. So that's great advice. So I think that's advice for candidates, but also for those who are hiring. Be prepared for that.
Absolutely. I think most people know now that the interview process really is a two-way street. You're interviewing the company as much as the company's interviewing you. So you always want to have your best foot forward, whether you're the employer or the prospective or potential employee. But be aware of the warning signs, just as you would as an employer interviewing somebody and you're asking questions and getting answers and responses. To your point, Tim, you're kind of watching their body language, getting a sense of mannerisms and, what might be truth and what might not be. And that goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit because I've got a question that I'm just really curious about. So, you've been a business owner now for a couple of years of Arbutus search company. And so you wear multiple hats at this organization. Yep. You're the operations person, you hire talent, you pay the bills, your payroll, you're wearing, you're doing a lot in your company. And so what do you do when you need to hire someone? Like, where do you go? Do you hire another recruiting firm to help you recruit? Or do you just post that job absolutely everywhere, or do you target, and how do you target? I think I'm speaking to your company, but just even in general.
Yeah. Great question. And I can honestly say there hasn't been, one, single, approach that I've taken. I do what I kind of recommend my clients do. You open up the doors to a lot of different options. And so, I've done a bunch of things, I guess, maybe to talk about the whole spectrum of, I look around for referrals, people in my network. That's a big factor. You probably know somebody that would know somebody. So get the word out there. I put it out on social media. I do advertise, absolutely. Get the word out there to let people know that not only, am I hiring at this, very time, but we're an employer in BC and we're always looking for good talent. So, it's kind of a branding effort as well at the same time. But yeah, I think, getting out there, advertising the job, asking for referrals, connecting with my network, and even asking my staff who they might know, who they might be able to connect me with, to kind of add that next hire. And I think, if you're doing enough of that good work in-house, your employees will always have referrals for you. They'll always want to recommend their friends. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point where instead of just, blasting out a job description all over the internet and hoping you're going to find a good candidate, look inside your house first, post it out there internally. I know some companies incentivize for that. Hey, if you find us a good candidate, we're going to give you a low bonus or a day off or whatever you can afford. And, when there's something tied to it, people don't want to put their reputation on the line by recommending somebody that, just for the sake of it. So it's a great piece of advice. Look in your house first, ask. And, and go from there. Another piece of advice that I love is just go to your network. LinkedIn, whether you love it or not, it's here to stay. And so put it out there. I see often people saying, hey, our company is growing. We're looking for X, Y, or Z talent. And you read through the comments, there's people being tagged in those comments, all day, every day. So it's a good place to go.
Yeah, that's a great point you make. I think, this network, LinkedIn, specifically is, it's growing really quickly. There's more and more professionals on it every day. And I can't remember the stat exactly, but there's a staggering number of people joining LinkedIn every day. And when you think about the connections you can make, both on the platform, but offline, in real time with people, there's learning opportunities, there's networking opportunities, there's opportunities to hire people. And absolutely, it's a good place to get your brand, out there on the internet for people to see.
Mm-hmm. And so your business, you're a recruiting company. So let's say, again, I'm a small, medium-sized business. I don't have HR support to then say, okay, hey, HR, I need to hire this talent. What do I do? We all have these two words in our minds is we're too busy. So when would I engage someone like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you could engage a recruitment firm or someone like ourselves at any time. I don't think there's really any kind of restrictions on that. An organization like mine, and one of the reasons we started the Arbutus Search Group was really to, I guess, provide a different level of recruitment service, almost a kind of a corporate in-house recruitment service without actually having that headcount on your staff. A lot of smaller organizations that we work with, and we work with people who are, kind of 12 employees right up to, 250, I would say is probably the sweet spot for us. And we've helped companies scale from, 12 to 35, or, in one case it was 35 to about 87. And over that kind of time frame that we worked with them, their needs changed, but what we were always able to do is help them very quickly define what the right kind of job posting would be. So what the right kind of advertisement would be, the right title for the role to go to market so that people could actually recognize and understand, what that position was going to be about, and it would potentially resonate with them. And then getting into the market and really finding out, who the people are, what the skill sets are, for that role that are going to be most viable and most successful in that position. And, I would say in terms of engaging us, you could come to us without a job description. We can help you write it. You could come to us after having done an exhaustive search and struggled to find people that would be the right fit for any number of reasons. It could be, the salary that you're paying, you feel maybe off. People declined offers and said it was because of salary, or you just came up against other organizations that, won out and secured the talent before you could. And so you didn't even get a chance to make offers to candidates. But yeah, there's kind of, we kind of see all ends of the spectrum and different challenges for organizations, but, we can help navigate kind of through all of that, through the challenges in the market, through the struggles with declined offers, and get you back to a place where you're, feeling confident with, making an offer to a candidate, and most likely will have an accepted offer at the end of that process. And a lot of it is just, again, a consistent process, conveying the right value to prospective candidates and being sure that we've kind of moved swiftly through the process. Not speeding or rushing, but just moving quickly, and with purpose throughout the process to capture that right candidate.
Yeah. One thing I had learned about you and your company, it's more than just finding somebody to fill a seat. Mm-hmm. There's recruiting companies I know that do that. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I know from what I know about you is you are someone who's about purpose, about values, and approach it with extreme humility. And And so I think there's an interesting sweet spot for your organization in that, where companies are growing, and maybe need to bring on a recruiting company. And I think it's also important to find a recruiting company that's aligned with your organization, with the type of people that you want to bring in, because, your company is going to attract a different type of candidate than just filling somebody in a seat. So I know we're kind of a little plug for Arbutus search, but I think it's a pretty cool approach.
Well, thanks. And I'm glad that resonated and was obvious to you when we started talking about recruiting. I've been recruiting for, I guess, kind of 13, almost 14 years, in the BC market. And I've recruited in, Australia and Japan and the US. And, I think what it really always comes back to in terms of filling roles and making sure that, people aren't just going to drop into the position and be gone in 3 months or 6 months. It really does consistently come back to ensuring that the people you're talking to, the candidates that you're kind of pitching, your role, your opportunity, that they align, that their values, that their interests, that their passions, align and almost resonate with your values and your mission, your vision, your culture. Mm-hmm. And I think that can only happen through, working with a recruiter, or, you personally recruiting for your organization in a way that has you engage the kind of the candidate or the applicant, in a real conversation and in multiple real conversations. I find, I've had some really interesting interviews with, one in particular in Australia with a VP of sales who we would sit down with candidates and he would raise his chair behind his really big, wide mahogany desk. And then he would lower the candidate's chair and he would put this power kind of, shift, in this kind of, put them in a position where he would just make them as uncomfortable as he possibly could. And we got into a couple of interviews and I was just shocked at how these interviews went. And they were terrible interviews, just terrible interviews. And as you can imagine, and the candidates left, I don't think the candidates had any interest in working for him, after that, rightly so. But when we talked afterwards, he said that, I want to see how they deal with a really tough customer, because this is what our customers will do to our sales reps. And I thought, this is terrible. This isn't how we get the best out of people. And it's not how we would want to treat them on the job to get the best out of them. So we really had some great conversations about, just putting people at ease and, really getting a sense of who they are just very naturally in a calm environment, and, get them talking about what they're passionate about and what they like to do. And I think behavioral style interviews are really important. You want to ask the questions that aren't so philosophical, but more, so tell me about a time you did X. Mm-hmm. How did that go? How did it work out for you? What was your solution that you proposed, and what was the end result? As opposed to, tell me what you would do if you had a really tough customer. So then you're more leaving it to their imagination with the situational style. So, I think, coming back to the, how do you really ensure that people are going to be a fit for your organization? It's, giving them a realistic preview of the job opportunity and of the culture, letting them come in and, kind of see that culture, meet people in the office. Doesn't hurt to tour them around, show them around the space. They can get a sense of the vibe, kind of in that office. And I think, all of that coming together, with a few interviews and meeting a few different people. Again, they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. Mm-hmm. You should be able to get a good sense of whether or not they're going to be a fit. And I'll say, I've worked in organizations where we did make bad hires, and we did have people come on to the team that just weren't a fit, or they maybe the role wasn't what they really truly wanted to do. And that's uncomfortable. That's hard. That's hard for everybody, So, recognizing that is an important piece. And that's why we're not box checkers. That's why we're not just out there looking for somebody that has done those specific skill areas and only those skill areas. We look for a lot more than that. And it's about culture and fit.
That's great advice. Even for someone who is looking to work with a recruiting company or is maybe hiring for the first or second time. You started a little business, you need to bring on talent, you've never done this before, and it's more than just checking boxes. And maybe, stay away from raising chairs and fear and intimidation may not get you the right candidates, or it may get you the right, who knows, but, play around with that.
That's right. Don't raise chairs. Don't
raise chairs. Yeah. Sit on the floor. No, just joking.
Yeah. Don't play. Yeah. You can play around a little bit with the good cop, bad cop thing, but I don't think you get the best, most accurate depiction of an individual when you try and scare them. This kind of fear tactic does not provide, certainly doesn't provide a great, performance, from an individual in a work environment or in an actual work setting. So, why would it work in an interview? And
exactly.
I don't see it. I don't see it. So
yeah, well,
good advice, Tim.
I've got a question that's kind of popped in my mind, and so I'm going to hopefully not throw a curveball at you, but I've had this question for a while, and it's about reference checks. So you're hiring someone, you ask for references because, that seems to be what you do, and it's been standard practice for I don't know how many dozens of years. Mm-hmm. And, I've always thought, well, if somebody's asking me for references, I'm always going to pick people that I like, people that would speak highly of me. Yeah. I have one interesting story of I was looking to hire someone in a technical role. They made it past the phone interview with our HR team. Then they had a first interview with the HR team. Then it came to me and sounded great. Then we did a reference check, and 3 out of 3 references said, "Do not hire this person." Oh, and I went, wow, that's very honest. And why would they choose these 3 references? And I won't go into the details, but it was kind of shocking. And so, what's your take on references?
Well, and I'm really curious to know if you hired the person or not. Not to put you in the spot.
Yeah, no, we didn't. It just set up a flag that, we couldn't get a clear response from the candidate on. We did go back to the candidate to give them a second chance. And then it turned into a they said, I said, and we ended up finding another suitable candidate, or we had another suitable candidate. So it wasn't a big issue for us, but it threw up a big cautionary flag.
Yeah. It would, and I think it should. With that said, I think, this is kind of it's an interesting topic because, references are, to your point, they're biased, they're hand selected by an individual that wants to get into your organization. So, they can be skewed. I think generally speaking, people will share insights, that are going to, help the individual they're giving a reference for. But, that said, I think if we look at references from a kind of a, more of a scientific, approach, if you will, somewhat. So first and foremost, references should only really make up, kind of 10 to 12% of your overall decision. So you don't necessarily want to weight them 100% that if the reference is amazing, we're going to hire them. If it's terrible, we're not, or if it's not amazing, we're not going to hire them. So you want to consider it as, kind of a part of the weighting of the whole decision criteria. What you want to do is, and what I always do, for my clients is first and foremost, I dictate and my client dictates who the references will be. So when you ask a candidate for references, in some cases, and in a lot of cases, I'll get, well, I've got a ex-colleague that we were peers. I'll give you that one. My old manager, I don't have their contact information, for my last company. So I'll give you the previous company, my hiring manager there, and then I've got a college professor. And right away I say, sorry, that's not how this is going to work. What we do need is your 2 previous reporting managers that you reported to. And if they're not somebody you've kept in touch with, you don't have a cell phone or an email address, I can find them on LinkedIn. That's no problem. But I do want to get their permission first. And totally. I want it to be really clear to this candidate that we're not going to take a cousin, a friend, and an old professor from 15 years ago. So, that's, I think it's really important to get the most recent, and to give you a sense of why it's important to get the most recent, reporting managers, or leaders, is that we want to know how you performed in a recent role, not how you performed when you were in college. Very different context many years ago. It's not that relevant. So what I always try and tell people is we aren't witch hunting. We're not looking to try and dig up dirt on you. What we're trying to figure out is, how do you perform, in a given scenario, and how can we best leverage, your optimal skill set or skill area? So that's really important, and kind of trying to help them understand that, with this data, we can help them thrive in going into their new role. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think, first and foremost, being strategic about which references you're given and you get. And then when you're on the phone with that reference, really understanding the context of the questions, and ultimately their answers. So, if they're saying, well, they didn't do, very well in, hostile, client situations. Okay, well, put that into context of the role we're hiring the person for. Are they going to have the potential for being customer facing? No, they're not. Okay, that's fair. What I would do on that reference, though, is dig into, so tell me more about, how they got broken down, or, where they kind of fell short when it came to dealing with hostile customers. What were the issues there? And you could say, well, they were in a call center and they were, just getting berated by clients who, we were doing a price increase of 50% for customers. Okay, well, we're nowhere close to having a scenario that this individual would work in that scenario, but good to know that they don't do well when irate customers are coming at them. So, probably an area we can coach them on. But if they're going to be sitting in accounting, dealing with internal, customers, then it's probably not a big concern. So hopefully that helps,
definitely.
I kind of understand the context for a reference and understanding how to apply it to the role that they're hiring the person for.
I think it does. I think it's just important to, we can say whatever we want when we're in an interview to talk ourselves up, but it's, let's put it into context. I think there's some importance in that. So, another question that I've got is, okay, so you've got a posting out there, you're getting, 20, 30, 40, 50 candidates, your resumes. So you've got nobody else but yourself to screen through these resumes. What's a tool that you could recommend, or a way to stay organized? Do you just create this massive Excel file? Is there a paid piece of software that you've used in the past? Do you just print everything off and use a highlighter? Like what's a way to stay organized?
Yeah, I think after I answer this, I won't be getting many calls from the local, tech companies in recruiting, because I think for the most part, they're all broken. And let me give you some context for that.
Love some context.
In my 13 years of recruitment, I've used really robust, and somewhat expensive, tools to screen, rate, filter applications, resumes. And what I found across all of these tools and platforms, the AI, if you will, or the algorithms that are there to essentially rate an application based on, keywords in a resume or a cover letter, just don't work consistently. Now, do they work? I think somewhat they do. They probably select out more of the bad than the good, but the odd good one that you do really need to see when you're in a competitive market like this, could also get filtered out. And if you trust the system 100%, you might lose some really great applicants. So what I would say is, in terms of, if you're getting a couple hundred applications, you probably have to read those resumes. There's no real easy way around that. So that's the bad news. The good news is there are lots of tools out there that can help you streamline, at a very basic level, some of the kind of the receipt of, and the management of those applications. So, I think if nothing else at a very basic level, if you don't have a kind of a corporate spreadsheet, or a repository for, a shared drive, and a repository with a spreadsheet in it, so that you can, keep track of all the resumes, cover letters, and associated documentation for each applicant. And then also the spreadsheet is key to kind of track notes, feedback, next steps, kind of dates within the process, all of those important details. Where the application came from. You'd probably want to know where the application's successful hires are coming from, so that you can do more advertising in that area, or put more effort and more time into that area for sourcing and gathering applications. But I think that's probably the first thing you should have. Probably second to that would be a LinkedIn account. So kind of a corporate LinkedIn account, and corporate page. Get your ads up there, get your job advertisements up there, get your posts and kind of social content up there, so that your staff, again, when they're thinking about referrals, they can post on their own LinkedIn timeline and make sure that the job ads are feeding out to their networks, so that people in their network can see it. And I'd say if you wanted to go a little bit more robust, there's a lot of organizations out there that are just receiving applications through an email system. So they're just getting applicants to apply by emailing their resume and cover letter. I think you could probably get into an applicant tracking system that would be that central repository. You could leave all your notes in the system, kind of set all that up for, kind of as little as about $50 a month per user, which is pretty affordable when you think about, having a safe place for all of those job ads to go. Job applicants to go.
Mm-hmm. So I think, what I'm hearing is get organized, whether it's, an Excel file or some sort of tracking system. And, as your organization grows, then start looking at maybe different tracking softwares or different ways applicants can get put in their resumes. But, I'm hearing a lot about the AI bots that are scanning resumes or scanning LinkedIn and for keywords and whatnot. And so, I think it's not going away. So even as an applicant, it's doing some research in the industry or the job posting that you're looking at to ensure that you are being found by these recruiters or by these pieces of software. So, I appreciate that advice. And so, I know as we wrap up, I want to get into, I'd love to hear one quick story from you. So over the last 13 years, you've hired, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I know you led a team of recruiters who was hiring about 250 people per year for a span of 4 years. So that's a lot of people, over 1,000 people over 4 years, and you're leading that team. So I would love to know a quick story on a mishire, like somebody who maybe just was like, didn't work out for whatever reason. And what did you learn from that? And let's see what you can share with us.
Yeah. I think there's, in 13 years of recruiting, there's going to be a few of those hires that didn't, just didn't fit. And I think I like the way you kind of phrase it too, Tim, the mishire versus the bad hire. I think, the difference really is, the fact that the mishire, it just wasn't a fit for your organization and might not be the right skill set for the role that you're hiring for. And I think, that's what I've seen, and I've kind of felt that pain, if you will, or that challenge when you make that hire, that something's, not aligned, with your organization, and it slows everyone else around you down. It, has you kind of working double time to figure out solutions to kind of, whether it's motivating the person or, kind of reshaping the work that they're focused on so they're more productive. It disrupts a lot. And I think, the cost of making a hire, whether you use an agency or you do it yourself, is high, because generally speaking, you're taking up your valuable time. And especially if you're the owner of the organization, time is money. So if you're spent, trying to correct a bad hire, that can be tough. I think for us, when we're out there kind of searching for people, again, I think we're really trying to connect with folks that, again, resonate with our culture and are excited about the work that we're doing specifically. And I can think of a time, back in 2015, when I was the manager of a recruitment team, and we hired someone in the HR team that just wasn't a fit. I guess, some of the things that went wrong for us is we saw some really impressive companies on the resume, and that just kind of really got everybody into, this excited state of, wow, they've worked for some really impressive companies. And we overlooked, a few things in the process where, as they were talking about the work that they were doing, we weren't really paying as much attention to, the specific executables or the deliverables and the achievements that they were making, but more so looking at what the whole team accomplished. And we just didn't drill into their aspect of, what they were doing on that team and what they achieved on that team. And so once we got them on board, we realized they weren't, in a position and didn't have the strengths or the skill set to deliver on those things on their own. They really needed to rely on that bigger team that they had at that previous company that we were so enamored with. And we were a lean team. We just didn't have the people power, if you will, to support them in delivering on those projects. They had to be a standalone person, and they really struggled with it. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think, you can see big names on resumes, and it's just so important right up the beginning just to start digging into it. So, I appreciate you coming on today, Joel, and just sharing that story and sharing some insights and how you stay organized and how important it is to spend time on this, spend time on recruiting and finding the right talent and how to find the right talent. So I think there's a lot of value in this. And so we'll make sure we put your company name, Arbutus Search, in the show notes, as well as a link to your LinkedIn profile. So with that, Joel, I just thank you so much for coming on today. And I really hope to talk to you soon.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me. And, I could talk about this stuff all day long. And really just appreciate your time. And it's great to connect with you. And hopefully your listeners get some value out of this. And just happy recruiting out there. It's a competitive market, but it's a lot of fun right now.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you.